I have timed myself doing this talk like 3 or 4 times, and it's either 5 minutes long or 35 minutes long, so it's going to be somewhere in there, but hopefully not go over. This is going to be a little on the technical side. So how many people in here are familiar with the way just developing on blockchains? Raise your hand. Oh, thank God. Last time I was afraid I was going to be giving this talk to people who did not know, so this is really good. So at Blockade Games, we've been building this company for about 2 years now, 25 months. And what we've been focused on over the past 2 years is building a lot of really fun games of like pure blockchain experiences to all the way to like very mainstream experiences like Neon District. And in order to support all of that, we've had to rebuild and think about ways to translate blockchain technology to the mainstream user. So we've been building this infrastructure inadvertently at first, and now actually knowing that we're doing this in order to use the technology that already exists and then making that mainstream. And there are, like the folks at Dapper Lab are doing a really good job of actually building the technology that's going to be a better foundation at the primary layer. But we believe that there is just enough technology right now that we can get started and actually start building the next generation of games. So a bit about me. My name is Ben Heidorn. I've been the CTO and one of the founders of the company. I dropped out of my computer science PhD program 3 years in order to found this company, and I've not looked back. We have built a bunch of games. Everyone's familiar with Neon District. I'm sure that sounded a little arrogant. You may have heard of Neon District. You may have heard of Plasma Bears, especially if you were listening to the panel about an hour ago. And then we also started out with a project called Pineapple Arcade, which was very... I don't know, I won't get into it, but it's an experience all in of itself. You can actually, there's still puzzles in there that have like several Ethereum and Bitcoin in there, so you can go hunting around for that. Okay, so first things first, I'm really proud of the company that we have, the people that we have working for us. It's been 2 years, and we've been able to bring together experts from every aspect of our business. Every single person that works for us has at least 10 years of experience in their particular field. We have gaming experts, we have MMO, UGC experts, some of the people who have been working on the earliest games in that era. We have game designers who have been doing this for 30 plus years individually. And just all around, just a solid team. And that's what you need if you want to start building in an industry that does not exist. For all practical concerns, we're still actually trying to make this a real viable industry. So some of the current games, and I'm only highlighting a few up here, just because I want to highlight the technology behind it and kind of explain why we're building this platform. So the Ledger of Zaba was not a very popular game, not a lot of people know about it, but it was an experimental game that started out as what was going to be one of the Pineapple Arcade games, and it took me forever to make it. So one of the really cool things about it is a game in and of itself, but your characters and some power-ups are Ethereum NFTs, and if you own them in your wallet, it changes the experience of the game for you. And even better than that, you can make your own characters. So those are just 3 example characters down there. The Doge was the most popular by far. We had someone make Spider-Man, actually our CEO made Spider-Man. We had someone make a pizza that would just walk around and you could fight the enemies as a pizza. And it was really cool. People loved it because it's super easy to make like a little character like that. So 16 by 16. You have a really restricted color palette. It's just super fast, super easy, and people just love doing that. And one of the cool things we did with this is I think this might be the only cross-Bitcoin Ethereum game, or has like an aspect of that involved, in which you can pay using Lightning Network Bitcoin, and you get an Ethereum token on the other side. So you can be a pure Bitcoiner and then still play this game. And we actually had some people doing that and streaming themselves playing, and it was pretty cool. But in order to support that, there's a lot of things underlying the game itself that you don't think about, but you have to build in order to make the game seamless and give the user a sense of immediate value. So Plasma Bears, people talked about it a little bit earlier. The TLDR of it is that it is the entire tech stack. It's everything we've envisioned as a free-to-play game. It's on a second layer. It you can take your bears out to the mainnet, to Ethereum, you can actually sell them, and it has the play-to-earn capacity behind it. And it was a project that we had spent maybe 2 months on, but it encapsulates everything from seamless onboarding. I used to show off that you could sign in using Facebook, which we didn't know that Facebook was going through a cryptocurrency at the time that we did that, which is kind of interesting when you look back. And I think it's the only crypto-backed game that you can actually play on Facebook too. So just by creating all these layers of abstraction, you can actually make a mainstream game, and people won't know it. And then, of course, there's Neon District, which is everything that we have been experimenting with, all the little things we've been doing, really is meant to come together in a real, full, live-action mainstream game that you go on Steam, you download, and you just play. So that kind of brings us to the platform, which is kind of a new proposition. What we're building is a set of APIs and SDKs that you as a developer can make any game that you want, and wherever you need to plug in the blockchain aspect of things, wherever you want players to start collecting assets, but they never have to learn about cryptocurrency, right? Like, it's just there. They just start playing the game. We want them to do that. We want them to do it anywhere. So you build it once, you deploy it anywhere, as opposed to like having to build a web game that only works in the web because you're supporting MetaMask, you're supporting all the sorts of transactions there, the one particular type of network. And then we want to use any supported blockchain and SDK. It'd be really nice if we get Flow in there. And some of the developer platform offering, some of the things that we have built that we are providing developers with, is going to be, first thing first is the NFT state cache and API. And that's really important because that means you can read incredibly detailed information, large, complex amounts of information from the chain in under a second. And that's critical for mainstream applications. In order to scale a game, to give people the ability to interact with smart contracts, you have to give them a second layer solution, right? And again, that's what Flow is doing. That's what Loom Network is doing, what Matic is doing. And they provide tethers to larger networks that provide liquidity. So we have built transfer gateways, custom ones that I will be demonstrating later. I realize I'm probably doing the 35-minute version of this talk rather than the 5-minute version, so I have to move a little faster. The metadata deployment and hosting on IPFS, that's really important to have truly decentralized assets and data without encumbering the chains themselves, because we envision that these networks are going to be around for dozens, if not theoretically, hundreds of years, right? And that's going to be a lot of data just sitting around out there if this ever becomes mainstream. Then we have our user accounts, we have all this other support, and I should really just cut to the chase. So this talk is going to focus on our onboarding solution and a little bit of the custodial key solution that we have, and just how does that look to the user. We're going to be talking a little bit about the NFT state cache and some of the problems in building that. And then, of course, I'm going to demonstrate the transfer gateway for Neon District. Oh, yeah. So this was after Plasma Bears. I had sketched out on a whiteboard what I envisioned our entire platform is going to be. This doesn't have any of the algorithms. This is just the where the system's located, how do we secure them, because security is paramount. And then up here on the top left, we have the chain state API, actually reading the data, recording the data, analyzing it, providing it back to the developer, so that way you can immediately just provide an experience to players. The bottom left is the transaction queue. That is, when you have a custodial wallet solution for players, we need to let them sign transactions and issue them without waiting for them. So we have an entire separate queue that operates independently of the actual game itself. And then we have our custodial key solution, and then the transfer gateway, which is actually totally different now. It's came up with a completely different method of doing that just a few months ago. And then I'm sure that this picture looks a lot better than the previous one. This is the entire architecture for Neon District. Okay, so what we are trying to do is we want to take all of the best parts of traditional games. We want it to be free to play. We want it to address a mainstream audience, but we want the true values of NFTs. They should be collectible. You should be able to speculate on them. They should actually generate wealth through the work that you put in. And so what we're trying to do is mark all of these and make all of this feasible. And that lets us, our thesis then is to do a free-to-play onboarding where all you do is install the game and you play. you don't even have to set up an account right away. You just start playing the game. Once you're hooked, then you are, at that point, incentivized to then go ahead and go through the whole process of learning about these sort of things. So the platform is meant to address any kind of blockchain game. It could be a purely on-chain game, or it could be what I kind of think mainstream is going to do at first, which is just to provide their games with NFTs on top of it. So we have all the way on the left, the Token of Infection was a game that we only advertised for like a weekend. We did this at a hackathon at ETH Boston last year, and the only way that you can really play the game is on OpenSea, and you would not think that that's possible. How do we make a game on OpenSea? Basically what you do is you own the token to begin with, and then when you transfer it to somebody, we kind of hacked the transfer function, and it doesn't leave your wallet. It just mints a new one to their address. So we actually spread it like a virus. And if you have a zombie, it infects other humans, and it turns them all into zombies. So that was a lot of fun. And then we have partial on-chain logic, which is probably what most people are building here, because we are blockchain enthusiasts. We know how to write contracts to support our games, and then how to blend the logic together. And then what is more likely going to be the future, which is non-fungible tokens as their own entity, where they are the data, they are your ownership of things, and they are not the game logic. So our first principles are we want mainstream onboarding, and we want uncompromised quality, which means everything that we build, everything that we want to give players needs to feel as good as any other top-selling indie game out there, period. There should be no compromising on any part of the experience. And we want to make these free-to-play games play to earn. So our development thesis, which is antithetical a lot to, I think, the way a lot of people think about blockchain, and a lot of, like hardcore Bitcoiners would probably hate us for this, but we build for the mainstream user first. We decentralize as the technology gets better, and we find ways to bring people back to decentralization and privacy and security and ownership. So first thing, for the seamless user onboarding, we want the player to play the game before doing anything unfamiliar. So this is from season 0. The idea is you can come right into the game, and as soon as you download it, you're immediately playing. I think it takes 15 to 20 minutes to even get to the part where you register.
All right, my new shiny Oracle friend. Let's find that bastard.
There's a lot of swearing in this game. Step 2, we want people to be able to sign up without knowing what blockchain is. So this is the Neon District portal that just came out a few months ago. This is supporting Season 1 and all the future Neon District games. You register with a username account just the same way you always have. And as soon as you're logged in, you get a free character. This is a non-fungible token. It's sent right to your wallet. You're immediately playing. Step 3, we want to let the player pay without owning crypto. And the way that you can do that, which is something that Dapper was talking about in the last talk, is you have to find a workaround. And the way that we did this is we have a virtual currency that is not a cryptocurrency that you can then pay with using credit card. And about a third, I think roughly a third of our people buying in on these assets so far have been coming from credit cards. And then when you go and you actually buy the loot boxes, it should be immediate and it should be responsive. So what we're doing here is when you buy your items, we figure out everything that you're getting. We display it to you. You can open your boxes up immediately no matter how many you just bought. And then we have a minting queue in the background that then immediately starts minting all of your assets directly to your wallet. Step 4, we then want to let you own your assets when you're ready, when you're incentivized. So we have an entire advanced feature where you can add your wallets, your Ethereum wallets, your Loom wallets, and then from there, we can mint directly to the wallets that you provide us. And this also gives the ability to use the transfer gateway. And then we also have two-factor authentication. You can't really see it, but as another layer to actually protect people so their assets aren't stolen. So the fundamental question here is, how do you build a reliable infrastructure given the trade-offs of blockchain? So keep in mind, blockchain is a distributed computing system. There are a lot of assumptions that we make when we go and build mainstream applications. We think that the network is always reliable for the most part. We know that's definitely not the case, especially when Ethereum can go down for 6 hours, as it kind of did when a bunch of nodes went offline last year. Latency is 0. That's obviously not the case, especially with blockchain, because you have block times. Bandwidth is infinite. Also very much not the case, because you have limited contract sizes for what you can deploy. There's limited execution that you can run in a single block. Like you have to think about your constraints and you have to work with them. The network is secure. Blockchain actually does a pretty good job of that, to be honest. And the rest of this, transport cost is 0. That's obviously especially not the case in blockchain, because every single thing that you issue to the network has a cost associated with it to run it. So there's a theorem in distributed computing called the cap theorem, and that is you have to pick really 2 of these 3 attributes that you really want in a distributed system. Consistency means that every read that you get is the most recent write, or it's an error. Availability means that you should always get a response. It should not error out, but it doesn't guarantee that you're getting the most recent one. If you combine those 2, then you always get the most recent one and it's always available. But then you might not have partition tolerance, which is the system continues to operate despite the nodes going down, messages being dropped, anything. Like eventually it should reach a consistent state. So blockchain, if you're reading this right now and you're thinking, I wonder which 2 blockchain chose, there's a lot of debate about it, but my personal take on it is that they strongly offer partition tolerance, especially. That's really what that's what made Bitcoin, was the ability that you could always have the network running, and then even no matter what shuts down. And then availability, you always get a response for any valid request. So what about consistency? The blockchain consistency model is either eventual or strong, depending on your definition of what it is. Eventual consistency means it will eventually be the most recent value. Strong means you will absolutely within a bounded time get the most recent value. And it really depends on what you're willing to tolerate as to whether you have eventual or strong consistency. If you wait so many blocks, like in Bitcoin, it's recommended that you wait 6 blocks. Then at that point, you're almost guaranteed to never see a rewrite at that level. But if you need immediate data, it is a lot more like eventual consistency, because block reorganizations happen all the time at the top layer. They happen like every 15 minutes or so on Ethereum. So the fundamental problem then is totally fine for a decentralized application with high tolerance for latency to use blockchain out of the box. Mainstream applications and games cannot do that. You have to provide the player with the most accurate data immediately. So we have to kind of build around that then. So what we've done for our state cache is we are making it eventually consistent read-only cache. So that means that we are providing the immediate data that we have, and we are separating that from the views and all the representations that come out of that, because otherwise you have to deal with the side effects of what happens if you operate on bad data. And you should always be updating the data as the consistency gets better, as more blocks are added to the transactions. So then kind of going into the sidechain, the transfer gateway process here, you have to consider a lot of, I have 40 seconds left. Okay, everybody knows what Ethereum is. And everybody knows that we have to build on top of Ethereum. We have to build side chains that are tethered to Ethereum so you can provide liquidity for players. And you still want to provide them with a really high quality experience. And that's really what Loom, Matic, Flow, and everybody was working on. So, man, I really did not crush it on time here. So the last thing I wanted to show you is the transfer gateway working in action. So this is in the Neon District portal. You can take your items that are minted currently to the Loom-based chain, and you can withdraw them very easily. And the entire improvement that we've been trying to make is we want people to be able to earn these assets and then when they feel ready, when they feel they have creative value, to then be able to take them over to Ethereum, and it should be as dead simple as possible. So this is the actual time. I did not cut the time on this transfer. This is going on the Loom network to the transfer gateway. And then when you finalize it, you're the one then issuing the request to the mainnet. And you're doing so because we have provided you with a proof and all of the data that is signed by an authority that is recognized on the Ethereum smart contract. So then you can go ahead and you can issue and create your token on the other side. And then here you can see we took our Sledge feed drone and brought it over to OpenSea. So what happened? There were 4 things here. The token approval and the gateway deposit has to happen one at a time, so that way you can actually deposit the token directly to the gateway. Then this is the centralized part of it. We have the Oracle signature, which is generated by the authority, and then we release on the other end. So you can then go back. You can see how this happens the other way around. It's the exact same process, but this time we're going from Ethereum back to Loom. So this time, when you go and you pick your asset, you're then going to be signing those first 2 transactions, and the last one's going to be happening automatically for you through the transaction issuer. I really wish I could speed this up, like 2 times, man. It'd be so good. So then when you deposit it, what happens is it emits an event that the Oracle will listen to. And when the Oracle hears it, it verifies all the data, makes sure that you're not trying to feed it bad data, and then it will produce the signature with all the information, and then you can go ahead and finalize it, and you're done. And this is a huge improvement over what we did for Plasma Bears, where we had a network node that was listening for all the events, and then it would do things in the background. This is a lot simpler. It's a lot more redundant. So that's it. Wish I didn't go over time there. Any questions?
Any questions?
I'm also going to be on the panel in like a minute, so you can ask questions then.
Yes. Wait for the mic, because we can all hear. So it's recording as well. So.
Sorry. So what percentage of people are doing the onboard, offboard to the blockchain of the number of gamers or players you've got? Is it high or low?
I didn't quite hear the question.
Sorry, what percentage of the people who are playing the game are actually checking out items to the main net and bringing them back in? Is it small, big, medium?
So for Plasma Bears, we saw a very small percentage. We saw a lot of people just playing the game, collecting assets because they thought it was genuinely fun. I can see the same thing happening in Neon District. I can see so the rule of thumb is you have like 2% of the users, of power users, like paying tons of money, and then maybe you have another 8% that are creating value and just doing small transactions here and there. I kind of see those same numbers happening in this model as well.
The game's not out yet, actually, Andy. So
Yeah, I just realised that.
Cool. Good. Thank you very much.